Welcome to Midlife Moves, where we're figuring out this whole midlife thing one day, one workout, and one what the hell just happened, moment at a time. I'm Heather, and if you're navigating career shifts, fitness goals, parenting teenagers, or just wondering when the hell we became the grown-ups, you're in the right place. Let's talk about the real stuff, no filters, just honest conversations and a little bit of chaos. Let's get into it. Hi. I'm Heather Francis, and welcome to another episode of Midlife Moves. Lately, I've been thinking a lot about how so many of us move through life on autopilot emotionally. When someone asks how we're doing and we say, I'm fine, we just keep moving, we keep functioning, we keep getting things done. And sometimes I don't even think we realize how disconnected from ourselves we've become until something forces us to stop and actually look at it. I know for me personally, the moments where I'm most insistent that everything is fine are usually the moments where I'm carrying the most internally. And I think that that's a lot of women, especially women who are used to being capable and dependable and holding everything together. You understand exactly what that feels like. Today, I'm talking with Meg Tuohey, the author of Heartprint, and this conversation was very grounding for me. We talk about what happens when we drift away from ourselves, how that impacts our relationships, why midlife can feel so disruptive, and what it actually looks like to reconnect with the parts of ourselves that we may have ignored for a really long time. This was another good one. Here's my conversation with Meg Tuohey. Let's get into it. You know what's interesting? I've had so many conversations lately about sleep, like not falling asleep, staying asleep, that 2 or 3 a.m. wake up where you're just up, which I deal with that too. And we're like, oh, this is what we're doing now. But recently, a couple things shifted for me. I cut back on drinking, which I know no one wants to hear, but it's helped. And the other thing that surprised me is our mattress. Helix sent us one, and I was honestly skeptical because we had just bought one like a year ago. I didn't think it was going to make a difference, but I'm actually sleeping better. Like fewer wake-ups, deeper sleep. I'm not as hot. It's just better. And I don't think that's the only reason, but it's definitely part of it. They do a sleep quiz that matches you to one, which made the whole thing pretty easy. Anyway, I didn't expect to have thoughts about a mattress, but here we are. If you want more information, I will drop the link in the show notes. I am joined today by Meg Tuohey. Meg is an author, a podcast host, relationship expert, and she empowers women to reconnect with themselves, reclaim their inner wisdom, rebuild self-trust, and lead from a place of grounded clarity. Meg, welcome to Midlife Moves.
I'm so happy to be here, Heather. Thank you for having me. And hello, listeners. Thank you for having me in your ears.
So Meg and I connected a little bit ago, also through Instagram. Instagram has been quite a blessing for me, to be totally honest. I've met some spectacular people through that tool, Meg being one of them. But Meg is very active on Instagram, and I get a lot of information from some of the things that she shares. I watch her reels. Whenever they pop up, I love them. But one of them that she did recently was a video talking about how women say we're fine when we're not. And that hit me because my brother and my husband know when something's really wrong with me, when I'm like, no, it's fine. We're fine. Everything's fine here. When I repeat it, they're like, oh, she's very stressed right now. So I would love to delve into that a little bit.
Well, I would love to delve with you because my beautiful brain has already got 3 different hypotheses. So we can go specific into you, or we can go general, and I can talk you through the 3 the 3 hypotheses I have. Which way works for you?
Let's do the 3, and I'll see if one resonates. Yeah.
So there's probably more than 3, but the 3 came in as you were asking me the question. First of all, I love the attunement that the people you live with have for you. They are able to give you that really interesting feedback that perhaps you're more stressed than you realized. You mentioned in the intro that I am an author, and I am an author. I've written the book Heartprint, which you can get from Amazon and Barnes & Noble. In Heartprint, we talk about the Yerkes-Dodson stress curve. And that matters here because the analogy I'm going to use for the first hypothesis is using science. Now, the the stress curve is like a bell curve, and right in the middle to the left is your zone of like genius. It's where you are flying. You are spinning those plates. You're doing those things. You are so in flow. You're successful. Your energy is balanced. It feels good to be you. Things are a little bit hard, but not so hard that you can't actually do them. Mm-hmm. But just a few ticks across to the right-hand side of the top of the bell curve that we've artificially put a line down the middle of becomes the beginning of overwhelm. And overwhelm can be a bit tricky in that the early stages of it still aren't that far away from flow, except you're running low on energy, or you're running low on cognitive power, or you're running low on your skills to be able to solve the problem. Maybe it's a little bit harder than you first thought. And so you're depleting, but it still feels like you're okay. And so it sneaks up on us. And it's not until we sort of go further and further across until we start to go down the other side of the bell curve that we often notice where we are physiologically. But the loved ones or our pets, now they can pick up those cortisol changes in those zones of overwhelm often before we can. And so that's the first hypothesis, Heather.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
The second one is that you hadn't had time to process where you were. So you were doing something and it had, maybe there was lots of parts to it. You were juggling lots of balls, particularly as women, we do. We have not just the glass balls that matter when we drop them, but we also have the plastic balls. We have lots of things we're trying to keep in the air. Irons in
all
the
time.
fire.
Yeah.
All the time. And sometimes we can be in a space of something and we just haven't had the opportunity to process our feelings or to process our physiology or to process our mental cognitive load or even process what something means to us. And we are not yet at the point where we've kind of got our own attention. Mm-hmm. And so somebody else is giving us that feedback. So that's the second hypothesis.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay? The third hypothesis is that really familiar cultural conditioning, which is when in doubt, if someone asks you a question and you don't have many resources left, what is the polite thing to say? I'm fine.
I'm fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine. And that is a systems one type of process. And what that means, which is also in the book, I describe it some more, is it's automatic and it's culturally, and particularly for women of our vintage and a little bit older and a little bit younger, I'm fine is the very correct response to how are you going? I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah.
You're also fine.
Yeah. We're all fine.
All fine. And what we're really circling here is that under some level of load, you're relying on your muscle memory to answer another question, which is another load on you. So they're the first three that came to mind.
So, and they're probably very right. So I think like the overwhelm aspect, because so many of us, like we just kind of move through life and we're just doing all of these things, like women in particular, we move through life and we just have all of these balls in the air, to your point, and we just kind of like, and that's just our baseline. Mm-hmm. So then once it starts to shift, we're kind of like, okay, there's no time. What do we do with this? And then also cultural conditioning. Like we just do. You get it done. Do you find that behavior like that shows up more in women who would identify themselves as strong or capable, or I don't want to say type A because I'm definitely not type A. And is there something about that particular identity that makes it harder to be honest about how we're really feeling?
There, I think, is many answers to this because it's a big, complicated question, right?
Yeah, that is true.
That's true. So I would say, yes, there is a type of us that are pretty capable and we may not make enough space for ourselves That might be my full stop. We might not make enough space for ourselves.
I think that that is a full answer in itself.
Yeah, I think it is too. And then there are all the other things as well. Like your podcast is called Midlife Moves. Midlife, it is a lot here. And it is not something that you are clear about in your adolescence or your 20s or even your 30s.
Yeah.
It is mid-40s and you are like, oh my goodness. Yeah. And I think it's heavy for a couple of decades here.
Well, what's interesting for me about like this phase, like this midlife phase, is like the recognition of who we are in reality versus who we always saw ourselves. I don't want to say like created ourselves as, but like the life we built versus who we actually are. And like you and I have talked, like we've done some work on boundaries, like we talked about boundaries previously, the boundaries that maybe we didn't have in place before that now we're realizing are so necessary. And the strength that comes with midlife, I absolutely love, but it's such a time of transition.
It really is. I interviewed someone for my podcast, Wisdom Stripes, and this episode won't be live for a while, so I'll give you a sneak peek. And she talked about the figure 8, and the figure 8 is mimicking nature where there's a beginning of something, and then there is like the going along and the growing into the beginning of the thing that started. There's like the doing of the thing.
Yeah.
And then there's the disruption. The disruption is the thing that then requires us to complete by ending or grow and start something new. And around and around and around we go. And so the life cycle of the butterfly is the most easiest thing because the beginning is this little caterpillar. The middle is the getting in the cocoon. The disruption is the melting of the caterpillar in the cocoon, which is what happens so that they can transform into the butterfly. And then the end is the butterfly's life after it's laid eggs, which starts the cycle again. And so in every aspect of our life, we have to melt like the caterpillar does. And we have to transform into the butterfly. So it can be a stage of life, 20s to 30s. It can be having a child. It can be getting a job. We can have lots of little things that we're in any of those areas on at any given time. And that is a really helpful conversation.
That's a nice way to look at it and really like that transformation can get ugly.
Oh my gosh, and it's uncomfortable and necessary.
It's so uncomfortable.
It's baked into nature, and we forget that we are from nature. We are nature. So we are totally different and not at all different from any other nature life cycles.
We're totally different and not at all different. Isn't that wild to think about?
Right.
But yeah. Can you talk to the listeners a little bit about your journey in creating Heartprint?
Yeah, it took me 5 years. It turns out writing the book at the quality and the complexity that I wanted to write in the simplified way has a lot of mastery behind it. And that's not even going into what it takes to write long form. And I had a lovely helper write my book with me, a ghostwriter, but I literally acknowledge him in the back of the book because I got to journey with him to create this complicated, simplified story. So Ellie is our main character, and she has a very human experience, and we see her journey from life to death. And we witness her confusion and her pain, and we witness her trying to figure out how to move through that disruption, move through those confusion and pain, and grow into the next evolution of herself. And in doing so, we get to see how she finds that internal wisdom that we all have access to. So Heartprint is based on the concept that we are all as unique as our fingerprints in terms of the expression or the full expression of who we really are. And Elizabeth is our inner compass that helps us know when we're moving towards the things that match who we really are, or perhaps when we're moving away from them. And that's what the book's about, because the closer we live to the way in which we're built, the greater access we have to contentment and satisfaction, even though we'll still live through those disruptive times. We have ourselves as comfort and wisdom and a compass. And that's kind of the whole premise of Heartprint.
It's beautiful, first of all. So what are ways that we can recognize as we're drifting away from that purpose?
Yeah, you're going to find a greater experience of negative emotion. You are. You're going to, and all the humans have negative emotion. I don't really love the term negative emotion, but we do like to categorize things, and it doesn't feel very nice to have those helpless, hopeless, angry, despair, jealous, those kinds of things. We don't like, and we find those emotions hard to tolerate, right? And so you will have more of them. You will also have a sense of, do I really matter? Does what I do really make a difference? Do I feel seen and appreciated? You'll have those kinds of questions, and probably you'll have a fair amount of loneliness. And in all of those experiences, we start to say, why do I feel like this? And then we start usually blaming other people or systems. Heather, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't feel like this. If we imagine you and I are together and I'm feeling disconnected, I will start to blame you. I'll start to be like, if you just cared about me more, then I wouldn't have this internal experience. And there'll be some truth in that, because there's always a bit of truth in it. And there's a big chunk of it that belongs to me. That is my job to do the work of making sure my life is built in a way that 80% of the time I am living in pretty close harmony with my wise woman, which is my version of Elizabeth, and therefore I have access to my heartprint, because our wise woman is our conduit to translating our heartprint. And so we're not looking at perfection, because we live in a human suit, and like we said, that's not easy. It's not easy being human. I'm not trying to sugarcoat it. I'm trying to help us ride the wave of our very, very big humanness and find some deep access to contentment and satisfaction along the way.
Because that's what I did, right? As I started to go through this process of like becoming who I am now, like this has been a years long process that and like I blame my husband. Like relationships are you're like, this is where the relationship expert comes in, right? So,
yes,
because I blamed my husband for a lot of it. And there's fault on all ends.
Of
and
course.
I've talked about all this on the show before, so this is nothing new to my listeners or my husband. But yeah, I mean, how we interact with the people in our lives when we go through that and we start like understanding like, oh, wow, I really drifted far. It's hard on relationships.
Yes, honey. Mm-hmm.
And what do you do? Like, what do you even do with that? Like, we just talked a lot.
Yeah.
It got ugly with us for a little while, but we talked a lot.
Well, we're back to the disruptor part, aren't we? Mm-hmm. So it does get ugly in the disruption. But, and what we also need to recognize that who we marry is we're not the same people, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. We've got to keep making the next relationship. And that means we're going through that nature cycle. So there's going to be endings within the relationship. Not that we're divorcing if we make it you and me, Heather. We're not divorcing, but our relationship is going to the next evolution. And so that's got to go through the caterpillar stage. And then we've got to transform into the butterfly. And then we're going to start the next chapter. And then that part's going to end as well. Like you can look at when you first get married and then you have kids, disruptor. You can look at buying a house, disruptor. You can look at when your parents have an illness or your spouse has an illness, disruptor. You can look at when you're an empty nester, disruptor. You can look at when one of the two of you die, disruptor. And so they're just the ones that we can all agree on very easily. But there's an unlimited amount of disruptors in between.
I mean, we face them so many times throughout all of our relationships and throughout life. Because like my mother, she had said to me one time when we were talking about the kids, and as my kids were getting older, I don't have little kids anymore, but she was like, I would grieve every time you guys would move into a new phase of life because like I loved this little person. I got to know this little person and then you moved into this new phase and it was like I had to get to know you all over again. And I grieved losing that little person. And I just thought that that was really interesting. So it's the same thing with marriage. It's the same thing with every relationship.
It's the same
And yourself.
And it's the same thing with life.
It's the same thing with life.
Everything in every way. I have these moments now when I get my team together, for example, because I can't be sure that all my clients come together to do a retreat, which is what I'm doing at the moment in Santa Fe, or in a live event. I do an in-person event every October. And whoever's in that room will never be in that configuration again. And I have such awareness of the gift of that time because we just never know. But we also do know that nothing ever stays the same. That's nature. That's life. We know that. And as humans, we find it very difficult to go through, A, the disruptor, but B, the endings. Endings are very confronting for humans. And yet we know that without an ending, there is no other beginning.
Well, the endings can be really scary.
Oh, and painful.
And painful.
Right? Even if we make you and I best friends now, and our relationship comes to a natural end, and maybe we've hurt each other or maybe we haven't, it doesn't matter whether we did or we didn't. It hurts to lose your friend.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
It hurts. And you still carry that with you. It's the relational pain that we have with relationships that end. We find it very difficult. We do.
Yeah, I can think of a friendship that there was a woman that I was friends with, and it was not a healthy friendship. It was weird, but we were very, very close. And I carried that for years. There was a lot of things that I missed about, it's everything. It's everything.
And all of us have those. So I have them, you have them. It's normal to have them. We don't talk about it as though it's normal. But,
but it is, yeah.
It's normal. And not everything is meant to last your entire life. And actually, nothing does last your entire life, usually. Most of the time, you're the most constant reminder that you exist. You're with yourself from birth to death.
Yeah.
You're the one. Yeah.
So you just mentioned that it's not something that we talk about. There's a lot of things that we don't talk about that everyone goes through that would be really, really helpful if we were all more open about it. Are there things that you wish were more normalized for us to talk openly about? Like within relationships or like...
I think talking about friendships is a big one, and the changes that happen in friendships and like colleagues, work relationships, because often as adults, we don't have a lot of capacity outside of our work and our family. And so sometimes we bond particularly with co-workers, or we have trouble with co-workers. And it's and our spouses and children, right? They're our main people along with our family.
Yeah.
It is normal to have problems and disruptions and breakdowns and repairs and completions. And we don't really like that aspect of ourselves. I often watch like reality TV as like a wind down. I am pretty much a Bravo super fan. And one of the things that I notice a lot is when I watch the women shows in particular, when those women like will have an outburst, later they'll say, I just want you to understand that's not me. And people say that all the time. And I often think, that is you, my darling. And it's all right that that's you. I wish we could talk about that we are not just one way. We are not just like good, for want of a better word, all the time.
Yes.
We're not.
I love that. That's one of the things that I have. My husband and I talk about it a lot as like none of us are just one thing, right? There's so much gray. Like we carry so many different hats and we're different people within each one of those roles. Right. And I think that's such a fascinating conversation to have. And you're allowed to be all those people, because I have times that I'm a lunatic, like a lunatic. And that's just part of who I am.
Well, also, if we go back to that concept of 80% of the time, we want you to have access to your wise woman, your compass,
Mm-hmm.
What's left? 20%.
Mm-hmm.
And so 20% you are not in your wise person self.
Mm-hmm.
And that is how we learn, disrupt, endings happen, beginnings happen. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's when we're a lunatic.
Yeah. Or we're in a meltdown, or we are shut down, or we are bed rotting, or we are denying, blaming, justifying, defending, using criticism and contempt, or stonewalling. Like, that's when we're doing those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is what is your ratio? If I had my way, we would all get to experience 80% of the time access to our wise woman. The work that I do, women come in and they are self-proclaimed 15, 20, 30% in their wise woman. And that's what it looks like in crisis. If you're not able to access your wise woman in the percentages that you wish, you probably have some form of crisis happening. And you probably haven't been well taken care of, and you are probably unable to take care of yourself because you haven't yet learned how to do that, because it is a skill and we can all learn skills, you see.
If you are someone who has not learned how to take care of themselves.
Yeah, which is most of us.
I can absolutely.
If you were born before the 2000s, you did not have a person teaching you how to do that. That we do not come, you are very likely not going to have a person like that. Our elders have not been particularly great at being elders.
No.
Mm-mm.
No. Mm-mm. So if you're starting there, what would be step one? Like, if there's a woman listening to this and they're like, how do I get in touch with my wise woman? What would be step one?
The thing that I would suggest is, this is not, it's a complicated answer, even though you asked for step one. I would go to the book Heartprint, because that's what I do. I take you through exactly how to do it. And for those of you who are like, don't leave me hanging, don't sell me a book. I'm not trying to sell you a book. I'm trying to answer your question. The answer is, when in the last 48 hours or 7 days, if you need to go back that far, did you feel the most like yourself? And when you go back and you find what that is, the example I like to use is making a cup of tea just the way I like it, and I get up early and it's dark and I've got low lights on, or perhaps it's winter months and I've lit a candle. Mm-hmm. That's where I live. And in the midst of my significant amounts of hardship that I've had in my life, which is why I can talk about these things, because I have earned my wisdom stripes. Mm-hmm. That's where I started, was finding a space every day where I felt like me, because that's where your wise woman is. And then you just try and add in another one, or you make it last a bit longer, or you bank the feeling of what it feels like to be you into your memory, and you actively look for ways to experience that again. That is the shortest answer I have. And the longer answer is in the book.
That made me feel really good. Like, I feel so warm. And I'm thinking about when I sit right in this chair, right back there every morning, and I drink my cup of coffee.
There we go.
That is my favorite. Like, it's silent. There's no one talking to me. It's nice and dark and just peaceful. Right.
And so if you're listening and you're like, I don't like hot beverages and I don't get up early in the morning,
fair.
Then I will jokingly say, well, there's no hope for you. But of course I don't mean that. That's a little joke. You're getting to know me, listeners. What I would say is, where does that live? You might have a biorhythm that has you have that at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Because that's when everyone else has gone to sleep, and you might be gaming or reading, or you might find it after dark out in the garden, gardening by torchlight, because that's all you've got, or you're painting a watercolor and you're with your 4-year-old and all of a sudden you've realized you're really happy. Maybe it's you've got to sift and sort, and the word you're looking for to find the thing that's yours is attunement. You've got to use your attunement to find where You are the most youiest you, as Dr. Seuss would say. And then we want to nourish that, and we want you to know that part of you and add as many other ways as you can to experience that part of you.
I don't think you can get any better from there. So we're I'm going to thank you so much for joining me today.
I had the best time.
If my listeners want to get in touch with you, what is the best way to find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Meg Tuohey Official. And my surname is spelt Tuohey, which is really strange, but I married into it. So I have no influence over the spelling, but it is at Meg Tuohey Official on Instagram. And I would love to see you there.
And we'll put a link to that in the show notes. We'll also link to her website so that you can check that out too. Meg, this was wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you. Like genuinely, thank you. I'm so I can't even tell you how happy I am right now.
I feel the same way, and thank you for making the space and inviting me in.
All right, listeners, until next time. That's it for this episode. If you had fun, learned something, or just feel a little less alone in the chaos, make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And if you want to keep the conversation going, come find me on Instagram at HeatherMoves_, because midlife is way more fun when we do it together. Until next time, keep moving forward, or at least keep moving. See ya.